Okay, happy Thursday. We are continuing to read through the farewell discourse, as it's commonly called, between Jesus and his disciples. And the text from today, I just really love. Jesus continues to tell them that he is going to go away. He says, in a little while, you'll see me no more. And then after a while, you'll see me. And if you're the disciples, you're probably really, really confused. Obviously, we know what he's talking about. We know that he's talking about the cross. But the disciples would have had absolutely no category in their brain whatsoever for what was actually going to happen, really in just like a couple of days time frame from when Jesus says this. And they're finally just asking him, like, what is he talking about? They're like talking to each other. You know, he says he's going to be gone and then come back. Like they still clearly don't get it. And so Jesus turns to a metaphor that I, for obvious reasons, being a mom of two, appreciate. He turns to the metaphor of childbirth. He says, you will grieve, but your grief will turn into joy. Like a woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born into the world. So if you know a mom or you are a mom yourself, this probably feels pretty interesting to you. Jesus uses this metaphor of motherhood, of birth, to explain what the disciples are about to go through. They're going to have some really intense moments. Going through childbirth is something I've really done once in a natural standpoint. I did 16 hours of labor with Ava, my first daughter, who's now 7, before ending up having to go into surgery. Medication free, so 16 hours of natural labor. Didn't make it too far, but I went through that experience, and with Zoe, there was none of that. But it's this concept of going through something excruciating, right? That there's really not another comparison to the process of birth. You go through this long period of time. There's actually you have some window of, okay, well, this part of labor may take this many hours and this part may be like only 2, but really when it comes down to it, there's no way to know when you start going into labor how long you're going to be in labor. And so Jesus is using this metaphor with the disciples as a way of saying, you are about to grieve. You're going to go through something that you have no categories for that is going to be really hard. You're going to suffer. You're going to be in pain. But just remember what comes on the other side of that pain. He warns them ahead of time. As a mom, you know that a child is waiting for you on the other end. What Jesus is telling the disciples is that the pain you're about to go through isn't without a purpose in the endpoint. There's going to be a rebirth. Now, of course, in Jesus's metaphor here, he's not actually talking about the birth of a person, but the birth of a movement. And this movement is both one that's going to be initiated in the short term. Like when Jesus comes back to life and he starts appearing to his disciples, their joy is literally, or their grief is literally going to turn back into joy. And that's a pretty immediate thing. When they see Jesus again face to face on the other side of the resurrection, how could you not experience profound and overwhelming joy knowing that everything he had been talking about was coming to pass? But at the same time, there is an element to this that is looking forward to a day that actually you and I haven't experienced either. The Bible talks about this metaphor for birth in a couple of different places, and always it's like the world is groaning like a mother in labor, and we are still in that process too. It's like the new birth has been started with the resurrection of Jesus. Our suffering can turn to joy now because we have hope, because Jesus lives. But yet at the same time, we look around at the world that we're in and we see that it's not quite there yet. There's obviously still something wrong. Again, the Bible talks about it as even the rocks cry out. There's still something going on that needs to be rebirthed. N.T. Wright talks about this idea of the whole world needing to be rebirthed. And that's what I think Jesus is pointing to when he talks about how this relates to the new age to come, when Jesus will come back once again, that you and I will get to be a part of. And in this rebirth, that's the time when it will be joy to the fullest. We have joy now, even in the times where we suffer. If you find yourself in pain, or if you're suffering, you may not feel that way now, but if there are seasons of that you're going through, we can have joy now, knowing that there's hope. We're not in our suffering without the child, so to speak, to look forward to. There is purpose. We have hope. We know that Jesus has been raised, and so we don't suffer in vain. Pain is not in vain. Like, we have hope to look forward to. And yet, at the same time, we have an ultimate hope to look forward to, that one day, as Revelation 21 says, every tear will be wiped from our eye, and everything that's wrong with the world will be set right again. And I think when he talks to the disciples, I think Jesus has in mind the resurrection. But I think as Jesus speaks to us through thousands of years in these pages later, I think he's speaking about that ultimate hope and that ultimate resurrection that all of us can look forward to, when everything that's wrong right now will eventually be made right. So in the present, how do we conduct ourselves in a world where suffering and grief and real pain is a very real part of what we go through? For some of us on a weekly basis, for some of us, we go through it in seasons and stages, and it's just a part of our daily living, whether it's with us or with people that we know and care about. How do we operate in a world? I think Jesus calls us to be his hands and feet in that world, to take the joy that we know is an ultimate hope, and to be present with people who are feeling or who are not feeling that, who can't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So I think this is just a cool metaphor of seeing ourselves in pain like a woman in labor. It's painful now. We're in the thick of it, but there will come a moment where our sorrow will turn to joy. We don't know when that is. We don't know how long we'll be here, but we know that Jesus is faithful and will see us through it. And whatever that looks like for you this week, will you just think about that metaphor? Think about what Jesus is telling you even thousands of years after these words were first spoken and even written down. Amen.